to be applying a very fine lime plaster finish to these boards. Move on then to lime wash and come back when that lime plaster is ready and do some fresco painting. Okay? So, let's see. Maybe for later. We are using hydraulic lime. It's a pre-mixed finish coat, which means it has the aggregate in it already, but it doesn't have color. So you guys, we're going to apply it white, and then when we go to mix our fresco, we can mix our fresco whichever color you want to try, and mix it and then paint that on. So this is called Eco Mortar. It's from that company that you have that big brochure about, the St. Esther's lime. And what you'll do is put a little bit of water in the bottom of your quart container. I don't know these ratios. The ratios that we have are for a full bag. So we're going to play with trying to find a consistency that works and find out how much water we need in there. So always start with a little bit of water. You always want to add your dry into liquid. So dry powders into liquid. Don't start with dry in the bottom of your container. You'll end up with dry on the bottom of your container later, unless you work really hard. So you can, well, maybe let's see if we can get, Rebecca, are you done with that?
Yes.
Would you be able to take that orange bucket and go get fresh, clean water?
Yep.
And
people are curious about that.
yeah, I'm going to talk about that too. So maybe half a bucket. Okay, so you're going to start with a little bit of water, and we're going to add some Eco Mortar. It's a bag that was donated to us from David Adamson, and the bag is a little bit broken, so we'll just scoop out of there. We'll get a dry scoop to use with that. Then you can take your you can take one of these paint sticks and use that to mix your mortar together, and then you can play with spreading it on. We're gonna work on getting a really nice tight finish. What you saw in the other garage with the red fresco, we want to work to get a nice sort of smooth, tight, closed surface. When we let it, after that, we'll let it set until it's hard enough that when we're painting some liquid on it, it's not going to move. One of the things that happens if you fresco a plaster too early is that you actually pick up lime and your color becomes more pastel. Okay, so you're moving the binder off of the sand and mixing it with your fresco water and color, and it dilutes it. So in a fresco, you're usually trying to achieve a really deep, dark color. That's often why you've gone to fresco. So if you do it too early, you'll lose that effect. Okay, so we want to leave a tight surface. We'll hopefully these won't take too long to dry. We'll move on to lime wash, come back, and have time to do the fresco. There's two ways to make a fresco mix. The simple version is just pigment and water. Your fresco mix of pigment and water is going to be way darker than what you'll end up with on the plaster. The way you get it darker is to do layer after layer of that. You keep putting that on in veils of color, basically. Now the red was done with a different mix, and it creates a much more opaque, bright color, much quicker, less coats. And the way that you do that is to take casein powder, okay, and use 1 part casein powder and sprinkle it into 6 parts water. And excuse the term, but this is what was taught to me. What this turns into is casein snot. And it's very descriptive of what it should feel like. It's pretty thick and gooey. And then that is added to your fresco water and pigment, and it makes, it binds it more, and it creates more of a film on the surface. It still becomes part of the lime plaster, but it's a carrier for the pigment. So, and notice what I did. I took the water and I poured the powder into the top, and I'm not stirring it. If you stir it, you'll get clumps. What you need to do is just let it soak in and sink and start to dissolve. It takes about 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and then you can stir it and make that casein mix.
Can
Okay.
you use that on an exterior?
Yes. Yeah, sure can. Yeah.
And then you're going to put powdered pigment directly into that.
We'll figure out how thick this gets, and we may usually you thin it with some water. So you have water and pigment, and add some of this into it. I'm still playing with ratios. This is new to both Bob and I to use this in our fresco. He was very excited about it, and that's what he was doing with that red fresco 2 weeks ago. So.
Where did it come from, the idea?
Well, Andrew Phillips from the Durango area, he's a casein rep from American. He's a rep here in Colorado for American Casein Company, which is on the East Coast, and he had brought some sample, and he works with it quite a bit. He does a mix that's a casein lime clay paint, sort of, over exterior earth plaster. It has the clay in it, so you have some like-to-like going on, and the casein and lime, and that creates what he's finding is a really nice finish over exterior earth plaster. And I've seen some of his work; it's just really holding up well. So
You
nice.
said it's 1 part casein, 6 parts water?
Yeah, that's sort of the basic way you would always mix casein into water, and then we'll play with some ratios with the fresco. Your boards have been prepped with an adhesion coat. When you're putting something thicker like a plaster on drywall, you always need that mechanical bond so it can grab on. So this is a really simple mix of a cooked flour paste. You'll get a recipe for that at the end. Rebecca, do you want to quickly describe how you made it last night?
Sure. I brought 3 parts water to boil. Separately, I mixed 1 part flour, just cheap white unbleached flour, with 1 part water. As soon as the 3 parts water were boiling, you add the 1 part flour, 1 part water that's already mixed together, and then take that off the heat and whisk it so that the flour breaks up, and then you want to go for no clumps. And then it sets, and then you can strain it through cheesecloth or a fine mesh.
Colander, wire colander kind of thing like that.
That yields how much could you use or apply to?
Well, because we're talking in parts, you can make that part 1 part any size.
Okay.
The trick is that when you're doing great big batches, and don't think I have my pot in here. I have, see that burner that's back behind there? That you could be doing big batches to throw some wheat paste into an exterior earth plaster with a burner like that attached to a propane tank, a great big pot. The trick is, the bigger the batch, the harder it is to not have the bottom burn. So a double boiler is a great idea if you can sort of make a makeshift double boiler, or smaller batches works good. Now the other thing that I use, Rebecca, would you grab? I don't know if you can. Oh, my wheat paste is down under that blue lid in the white, or the clear container with the white lid. I get powdered wheat paste. It's called pre-gelatinized wheat starch. It's from the food products industry. I don't have a great source to pass on to you right now. All of us are sort of scrambling, trying to figure out how we can order this through the food industry better. But it looks like this. Has a really funny feel to it. And I just whisk this into water, and it makes the same wheat paste. No cooking. So, and I'll show you tomorrow how, when I'm mixing a kaolin clay plaster, I'll mix this dry into the sand so it gets well dispersed in sand. That gets added to the water, and I don't have clumps.
Wow.